You're listening to Feathers, a podcast of stories about God speaking and his people having just enough faith to believe him and obey. I hope these stories inspire you and encourage you to take flight in your own faith. I'm your host, Amy Bennett, and this is Season 4, Episode 12. Well, hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode. I'm so glad you're here. This week I have something totally different than our regularly scheduled program, as they say. This week I'm sharing an experience I got to have this weekend that was part of someone else's feather story. So you may be familiar with author and speaker Annie F. Downs. She was on the podcast actually this past April on Season 3, Episode 15. And Annie shared the story of how she took a leap of faith and moved from her home in Georgia and moved to Nashville. And I really can't go into the full story, but she ended up moving to Scotland and then back to Nashville, and she now has this writing career. Well, a few years ago, she had what she called a near breakdown, where she had never really learned to deal with a lot of things in life and had always tried to run. So that whole flight or fight thing, she would always try to fly away, the flight. So she goes into counseling and learns really how to get through the tough things instead of running from them. And in the midst of this, she learns to do what she calls looking for lovely. So her latest book that she shared on the podcast is called Looking for Lovely, and it shares this story, and then each chapter documents the things that she finds lovely. And many of these things were found after moving to Nashville, and really how God uses this difficult time and these lovely things to teach her really how to go after the most lovely thing, and that, of course, is Jesus himself. And so she just shared really God is going to call us to some difficult things, some good things, but difficult things. And the way we get through those is really just to what she called tie knots in the rope, and these lovely things are the knots, and it just helps us climb and helps us get through them. So that's really where we left off with her story on the episode. Well, since then, she planned a gathering of friends in Nashville called the Looking for Lovely Weekend. And it was just a big celebration of all God had done in her life. And guests were going to experience lots of her favorite things. And y'all, you only have to know Annie for a split second to know that she is all about fun. She even has a podcast, and the name of it is That Sounds Fun. So the weekend is going to be amazing. So it was planned for this past weekend, and my birthday was last week. So as soon as I heard about it and saw the dates, I emailed a few of my friends just to see if they wanted to go, and my very longtime friend Danny was able to go with me. So we've been friends for 20 years almost, and she moved away 3 years ago, and I don't think we had seen each other for almost a year. So we were so long overdue for some a coffee date. So anyway, we decided to make it a girls' weekend for my birthday and just plan to have a bunch of fun. She has 4 kids. I have 3 kids. We just were going to have a girls' weekend and enjoy some time away. So a few people were asking me for some highlights for the weekend, and so I thought I'd share the lovely things that we got to experience, and then I just have some thoughts about how it relates to this podcast and faith, and actually have some ideas for us going forward. So let's get started. I'm going to jump into the weekend. So we drove up. It actually took us about 8 hours to drive from the Charlotte area over to Nashville. And Friday night, we had the event at a church. And it started out with a barbecue dinner, which was super yummy. So the barbecue was one of her favorite things, one of her lovely things. And it really was super yummy. And then we kind of moved into a gymnasium area where they had a stage set up. And a couple of things happened. First, we got to see a new group called Post Monroe. They are a trio of female singers. And Danny and I sort of, called them this generation's Dixie Chicks. They were absolutely amazing. I mean, there's some people that are good recording artists, and then some people sound really good live. I always just think Carrie Underwood just sounds so amazing live. Of course, she sounds good recorded too as well. But these ladies are like that. They are such amazing singers live. I mean, it was just gorgeous. So go look them up. But you can just tell, you kind of got, Annie said it, and Danny and I both agree, you're going to see these ladies on the stage soon getting awards because they've just got it. They've got it. So that was one of the surprises from the weekend. We actually knew about it a little bit ahead of time, but that was one of the surprises, and it was really fun. It was, just so you know, the group that was there, I think there was somewhere around 100, 110, something like that. So it was a small group of people, and Danny and I were on the front row of the thing, and it was just amazing. So I had front row seats to this amazing group in this small venue. And then next what happened was... I hope I'm getting this order right. But anyway, so Meredith Andrews, I don't know if you guys know Meredith Andrews, but she led worship for this small group. And she has several radio hits on Christian radio. And she's actually one of my favorite artists. She has a song called Soar. And it was kind of one of my theme songs over the past year, of course, because of this podcast. But she just led us in worship. And again, front row seat. I mean, it was just... She's just so talented. It was just so amazing. She's just so down to earth. So enjoyed that. And then Annie's dad, actually, he kind of did a This Is Your Life thing with Annie, and we got to see pictures and video from her as a child, which was super fun. He did a great job bragging on Annie. And then Annie got to speak, and she really, her message for us was basically the message that she gave on the podcast, and that is just to be brave, and when God calls us to get up and go, even when we're in a good place, that we need to get up from the table and follow Him. And then once we see Him be so faithful, which He always is that we need to take time to celebrate. And she pulled out some verses from Luke where we see that Jesus partied. He did. He went to parties and he celebrated. And we know, even from the Old Testament, God had all these feasts and celebrations for His people. And He wants us to celebrate. And the amazing thing happens when we're able to celebrate. And that's that God gets the glory. And really, that was the message that, God had been so faithful to Annie. And she just shared from her heart when she first got to Nashville how she didn't know anybody, and she was so lonely, and she couldn't understand how any of it was good. And yet to see her now, she's so connected to the people in Nashville, and how God has just built this writing career for her. It's just amazing to see, really, and be in the room and kind of like feeling and experiencing the fruit of all of that obedience in her life. And just to see and experience that, it was just amazing to hear her tell the story, and then to be part of the experience of the goodness of that. It was just so good. So when we left, she gave us a couple treats, some cookies and some other treats. Oh my goodness, I think it's Christie's cookies. So good, y'all. I mean, you should look them up online and get them delivered to you. That's how good they are. And then we were able to get pictures with her. And poor Danny and I, we went from Eastern time to Central time, and we were zonked. So we went straight to the hotel and crashed. But then it was, for Saturday, it was a nice long day. We started super early. We had to be at Radnor Lake at 7 a.m. And Radnor Lake is she talks about this in Looking for Lovely, and how God just really met her there and spoke to her, and it was just part of her healing process. And in this particular place, and in the book, was super special to me, and how she talked about that she was walking one day and she really just felt like that she was so joyful about what God had done, that she just wanted to sing a song. And at the end of the book, she actually writes what the song would say. And on the podcast, she actually read that live on the podcast episode. And that was just so special to me, because God had, over the past year, one of the things that He had told me is that He wanted to hear my song. And so Radnor Lake and just that whole idea was a connection to my story. And so it was amazing. It was 7, super early in the morning, 7 to get out there, and just, it was so beautiful. There's of course a lake, and the trees were just, everything was just so green and lush, and it was just a great start to our morning. So once we got done, it was actually a quick walk through Radnor Lake. I would have loved to actually spend more time there, but got through that, and then there was another church nearby where we met, and in the gym they had the instructors for BFAB Fitness. And this is a fitness class that was also part of Looking for Lovely book. And Annie just talks about, how she just had so much fun and found fun in exercise there. And oh my gosh, we had an absolute blast. There was 100 women that just totally jumped into this exercise class. And it's basically like a Zumba class, but with more hip hop. And there were 3 instructors up there, and we just had so much fun. Like, honestly, the BFAB Fitness was my favorite part of the whole weekend. And what I loved is that at the end, one of the instructors talked about the fact that this just shows you, because of the owner who started BFAB Fitness, she really branched off and had started this business because of a passion. And it just went to show that when you just follow your passion, what you were meant to do, that you really will see the fruit. And so once again, got to experience someone else who really followed that and got to see the fruit of that. And so for me, it was really special to me too, because I just remembered I had been so off my game on exercising. I used to really like to do exercise DVDs and even going to the Y and doing classes, and it was just good for me to remember how much I loved being in exercise class, to be honest, and it really inspired me to want to get back into that. And it was just fun. It was just fun dancing, and there was a bunch of moves I could not do, and I was going the wrong direction, but we had a ton of fun. So that really got us buzzing for the day, if you will. So once we finished with that, we were sweating like crazy. We had done the lake. We had done BFAB Fitness. So we went back to our hotel rooms and were able to get ready. And then we met everybody downtown, and we got a picture together on one of the bridges there over the river downtown. And then they had big tour buses, like charter buses, I should say, 3 charter buses to take us around town. We first went to a place called a saloon. I called the Sutler Saloon, I think. And so there was it's kind of a place where you go where they would have bands. And then we went to kind of an event hall that was like in the basement of it. And it's sort of like prohibition type feel too. It was kind of dark, and there's a bar down there. And there we were able to eat lunch, and Annie signed books there. And this part was, honestly, it was nice, but I was so hot from taking that picture downtown that I spent a lot of time just drinking water and trying to recover from the heat. And it was kind of a big long wait to get in line for the lunch. And so it was kind of just a rejuvenation, if you will, time for me. So really cool place. I would love to see a band there. That would have been really cool. So where did we go from there? So we loaded back on the buses, and what was really cool was that apparently it had rained while we were doing lunch, and we had been kind of really scared about the weather. It kept saying that it was going to rain, and it did it while we were at lunch. So they got all of that out of the way, so we could keep going. All right, so then they took us over to 12th South, which is, of course, south of downtown, and it's just kind of a strip of local sort of places. Some of them are in they're just basically old buildings, old houses. Some of the more popular places, the Frothy Monkey, which is a really cool coffee shop. Actually, I follow a lot of people for whatever reason that live in Nashville, and I always see their really cool coffee pictures from there. They're always writing books from there and whatnot, and so it was really cool to finally be there and get my own cup of coffee and, Instagram the cool coffee picture. So that was fun. I felt very much touristy doing that, but it was cool. And then they have another place called Sprinkles, which is a cupcake place, and that actually has a cupcake ATM, which is amazing. So it's a touch screen, and you tell them what you want, and you pay for it in like an ATM slider card, and then it actually has you can watch it, the thing that grabs your box with the cupcake in it, and it puts it in a little slot, and you open the door and get your cupcake out. So that was really cool to experience. Actually, Reese Witherspoon's one of her shops is down there called Draper James. Everything was super expensive. Reese, I love you, but I cannot afford your stuff. No, the the dresses were like $260, and I think the shirts were like $100. And I was like, maybe one super, super special occasion I might do that. But beautiful stuff. I mean, it was like artwork, the patterns and stuff. And it was just beautiful just to walk through. So that was fun. And they also had like a lot of walls painted on either side of these buildings. Like the brick was painted. So a lot of, picture photograph opportunities. So you guys can see one of those on my Instagram account too. Then they had this really yummy popsicle place that you could get really cool, flavors and stuff. And so you can see a theme of food as we go through this weekend. So once we spent a couple hours there, and then we loaded back on the buses. Then they took us downtown to the Ryman. And so if you were if you had a VIP ticket for the weekend, you got to go to see the Dave Barnes concert at the Ryman and do a meet and greet with him. But Danny and I had chosen not to do that. So we got our last picture with the group at the Ryman and then had to say goodbye to Annie and the group after that. So that was kind of like the end of the Looking for Lovely part of it. So we got to experience the exercise, we got to experience the Sutler, all the 12th South locations, and the Ryman, which is an entire chapter in her book too, the Ryman. So I hate that I didn't get to experience that, but so that was the whole Looking for Lovely kind of weekend. If I look back on all of her items, also one little thing was she has a whole chapter about nail polish, and we all got nail polish in our swag bag, which was another cool thing that we got. Was a Looking for Lovely bag that had a t-shirt in it and nail polish and her books and Bible studies and stuff like that. So that was fun. So if I look back at all that, like I said, I think one of my favorite things was the BFAB fitness class. Just absolutely a blast doing that. And then after that, I mean, Meredith Andrews was just so wonderful leading worship, and that was just a really special moment through the weekend. So Danny and I we actually walked back through downtown. We got to see Broadway. Another thing was really funny, and I didn't realize this was a phenomenon, but apparently women are going to Nashville to do their bachelorette parties, and it's like a thing. So they get all matching t-shirts, or the bride wears like white or cream, and then the bridesmaids all wear black. And I promise you, we probably saw 10 or 15 groups of bachelorette parties all downtown. We saw them on 12th South, and I kept seeing these, like, I can't believe so many women are getting married in Nashville. But apparently it's a thing that people fly in and drive to Nashville just for these bachelorette parties. So now you're in the know. If you want a bachelorette party, the thing to do is go to Nashville. So Danny and I ended up going back to our room and then just headed out for at a restaurant, which was really good. And it was actually in a old farmhouse, and which was turned into a restaurant. And I would try to pronounce it, but I don't think I can. But it was in Brentwood. So that was super yummy. I will link to it in the show notes. How about that? So that was kind of our experience. We ended up getting up Sunday morning before we left and went back to the Frothy Monkey and got some breakfast and more coffee and grabbed another cupcake for a friend. So that was our weekend, and it was lovely. I mean, the best thing about it for us too, like I think Danny said her favorite moment was Meredith Andrews as well. And what we enjoyed was just, it really was a lovely weekend for us because we didn't have to make any decisions. Because as moms, like I said, we have 7 kids between us. As moms, we are always thinking, always deciding where we're going, making all the reservations, cooking, eating, all of these things that we're normally deciding. And it was so nice just to kind of show up and somebody put food in front of us and tell us where to go and to drive us around. And it was just a wonderful, nice, relaxing birthday girls weekend. So we had a great time. I don't know how it could have been any better, except maybe the weather would have been a little bit cooler. It was so hot out there. But also good. But I think it's really important to share this because it was actually kind of fun to Well, it was just really fun to actually be a part of basically somebody's ongoing story. So, we've had somebody on the podcast, and then just to see their next steps in their journey, and then to see the fruit of that, and then just to experience that. It was just so much fun. And I think it's so important too. I really walked away with the challenge to really celebrate. As we have all of these episodes and we talk about all these stories, we have so much to celebrate. We really do. And God is so faithful to us, and we have so much to give him glory for. And as, we hear Annie tell her story and we see all the joy that has come from all of this, we have a lot to celebrate, and God really gets the glory for that. When she stands on stage and says, I didn't think I was going to be able to make it. I didn't know what I was doing. And yet I can stand here and say that it was all worth it, and it was all God. I mean, that is just amazing. And just to see in Scripture how God encourages celebration, it really, it challenged me to make me want to do it. So as we were driving back, Danny and I were talking, and I was thinking, how cool would it be if we could gather as Feathers listeners to do some sort of celebration, or even another thing I was thinking was a commissioning. So wouldn't it be cool if there was somebody who was getting ready to take that leap of faith, whether it was to move to another country or start a business or whatever, and kind of do a sort of commissioning, and to say, hey, you're taking that leap of faith and we believe in you, and we're going to celebrate before we even see what God's going to do, because we know he's going to be so faithful. So that was kind of some ideas brewing in my mind. I would love to hear if you guys have ideas about that. Would anybody even be interested in coming to Charlotte? It wouldn't be like it may be somewhat like a Looking for Lovely weekend. I don't know. But I just want to encourage you guys to celebrate in your own life as God is faithful, because I know he is, to take time to give him thanks and to celebrate, and then to do that corporately too. And maybe we'll see down the road what that looks like for us. So guys, I don't know, that was just super fun to be able to talk about and to experience. And again, just want to encourage you to take those leaps of faith, do the things that God wants you to do. I mean, I just think about Annie. There was no way that she would have known, just by moving to Nashville, all that would happen. And just to see how faithful God is. Her story just so encourages me, and she encourages me to have fun. And I hope this encourages you in turn to also take those leaps of faith, and to just follow God. Get up from like she says, get up from the table and just follow God wherever he calls us, and then to celebrate when he is so faithful. All right, guys, so that is it for this week. We will be back to our normal schedule next week. I will have some show notes over on featherspodcast.com. And as always, you guys can rate and review over on iTunes, and share on Facebook as well. So, guys, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next week on Feathers.